Natalie Chen pushed through the revolving doors of Manhattan Memorial Hospital, her exhausted body moving on autopilot after another grueling double shift. The October rain hammered the sidewalk with relentless intensity, turning the city streets into rivers of reflected neon light. She fumbled with her phone, fingers trembling from fatigue as she tried to summon a ride home. 27 years old, drowning in student loans and living paycheck to paycheck. This was not the glamorous New York life she had imagined back in her small Illinois hometown. Her scrubs clung damply to her skin beneath her threadbare jacket, and the soles of her sneakers were so worn she could feel every puddle seeping through. The ride-sharing app finally loaded on her cracked screen. 3 minutes away. Blue Honda Civic. She squinted through the rain, watching headlights blur past in the downpour. The mysterious driver, a sleek midnight blue Aston Martin, glided to the curb directly in front of her. The passenger window descended smoothly, revealing darkness within. Getting drenched out there, a rich baritone voice called from inside. Natalie hesitated, glancing down at her phone. The app still showed her ride approaching, but this car had stopped right where she stood, as if summoned specifically for her. Natalie Chen, right? The driver asked. Her heart skipped. He knew her name. Maybe the app had glitched and upgraded her ride without showing it. Technology failed all the time. The rain intensified, and exhaustion made the decision for her. She slid into the passenger seat, bringing a spray of rainwater with her. Sorry about the mess. Don't worry about it, he replied. His voice warmed despite the professional tone. In the dim light, she could make out his profile. Strong jawline, dark hair with distinguished silver threading through it, and an air of quiet confidence that filled the car like expensive cologne. He wore an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that seemed far too elegant for a rideshare driver, but this was Manhattan. Everyone had multiple jobs, multiple lives. Unexpected conversation? Rough day? He asked, pulling smoothly into traffic. The roughest, Natalie sighed, sinking into leather seats that felt like butter beneath her aching body. Double shift at the ER, and I just found out my landlord is selling the building. Everyone has 30 days to find new housing. She watched the city blur past, lights dancing on rain-slicked windows like watercolor paintings in motion. Tough situation, he said, his voice carrying genuine sympathy. Where to? Oh, right. 247 Lexington Avenue, Brooklyn. He nodded, taking a route that seemed unfamiliar. When she gave him a questioning look, he explained, shortcut. The main roads are parking lots right now. Natalie nodded, too tired to question the logic. Do you mind if I close my eyes for just a minute? Go ahead. The warmth of the car, the smooth ride, and the steady rhythm of rain against glass created a cocoon of comfort she desperately needed. The awakened Natalie jolted awake when the car stopped. Disoriented, she looked out the window and felt her stomach drop. They were parked in front of a towering glass skyscraper she had never seen before. Definitely not her modest Brooklyn walk-up. This is not my address, she said, alarm creeping into her voice as she sat upright. The driver turned to face her fully for the first time, and she could finally see him clearly in the building's ambient light. He was devastatingly handsome, with storm-gray eyes that held a mixture of amusement and apology. No, it's mine, he said with a slight smile. Cold realization washed over Natalie like ice water. Sterling Tower? As in Sterling Medical Technologies? The same? You're Dominic Sterling? Her voice came out as a whisper. The billionaire tech mogul whose revolutionary patient care software had recently been implemented at her hospital, making her life infinitely more complicated for the past 2 months. Guilty as charged, he confirmed. And you are? Mortified, Natalie groaned, covering her face with her hands. I'm Natalie Chen. I thought you were my rideshare driver. Dominic's expression softened. Understandable mistake. I was here to pick up someone else. Natalie Chen, from the hospital. Different Natalie Chen, as it turns out. My assistant scheduled the pickup. God. Natalie reached for the door handle. I'm so sorry. I'll get out of your way immediately. Wait, Dominic said, his tone stopping her mid-motion. You mentioned the patient care software. You work at Manhattan Memorial? She nodded wearily. Yes, in the ER. The hospital where we just launched our new system? The The very system that has nurses working overtime to navigate interfaces that make simple tasks take 3 times longer, she replied, then immediately wished she could take back her honesty. To her surprise, Dominic laughed. A genuine, warm sound that transformed his serious face into something more approachable. Honest feedback. Refreshing. Most people tell me what they think I want to hear. New opportunity. Natalie's phone buzzed. A text from her actual driver waited at location. No passenger. Ride canceled. Cancellation fee applied. Perfect, she muttered. Now I need another ride in this weather, and I've been charged a fee. Dominic studied her thoughtfully. I have a proposition, Miss Chen. I'm not interested in propositions from strangers who just drove me to unknown locations, she replied automatically. Her nursing instincts kicking in. He smiled again. Fair point. How about this? I drive you home as an apology for the confusion. On the way, you tell me exactly what's wrong with my software that's making nurses' lives difficult. Natalie weighed her options. The building had security cameras, doormen, and was obviously public. Her practical side warred with her safety concerns. Counteroffer, she said finally. You arrange a car service for me on your account, and I'll send you a detailed email about every flaw in your system. Dominic considered this. Counter-offer. I arrange your ride home. You send me that detailed analysis, and if it's as insightful as I suspect, I offer you a consulting position to help us fix these problems? Natalie laughed incredulously. You're offering me a job because I accidentally got into your car? I'm offering you an opportunity because you might have the perspective my entire development team is missing, clarified. Sometimes the best innovations come from unexpected encounters. Before she could respond, the rear door opened, and a woman in an elegant business suit peered inside. Mr. Sterling, I've been waiting in the lobby. Your assistant said you were picking me up, but when you didn't arrive, Ms. Chen. I apologize, Dominic interrupted smoothly. He turned back to Natalie, pulling a business card from his jacket. Think about it. My personal number is on the back. Natalie took the embossed card reflexively as the other woman gave her a curious look. She stepped out into the rain, where a uniformed doorman immediately appeared with an umbrella. Mr. Sterling has arranged a car for you? Miss, he said politely. As Natalie waited under the awning, she stared at the business card in her hand. The universe had just thrown her the strangest curveball. As a luxury town car arrived, she slipped the card into her pocket instead of discarding it. That single decision would change everything. Natalie's phone shattered the peaceful silence of her tiny bedroom at 7:15 in the morning. She groaned, reaching blindly across her nightstand and nearly knocking over a half-empty water glass. The screen displayed an unknown number. Against her better judgment, something compelled her to answer. Hello? Her voice came out rough with sleep. Miss Chen, this is Patricia Monroe. Mr. Sterling's executive assistant. The woman's voice was crisp and professional, making Natalie suddenly aware of her rumpled appearance despite being alone in bed. Mr. Sterling would like to meet with you today regarding your conversation last night. Natalie sat bolt upright, suddenly wide awake. I haven't even sent him any feedback yet. Mr. Sterling was quite impressed with your initial observations and believes there's potential for valuable collaboration, Patricia continued seamlessly. Would 11 o'clock work for you? A car will be sent to your address. Natalie's mind raced. Was this really happening? Yes, I suppose that works. The moment she hung up, she frantically dialed her best friend Rachel, who answered on the 7th ring with a groan. Someone better be dying. Rachel mumbled. Remember that billionaire I told you about last night? The one whose car I accidentally got into? Natalie paced her cramped bedroom, stepping over a pile of medical textbooks. He wants to meet with me today. Officially. Wait, what? Sleep vanished from Rachel's voice instantly. The gorgeous billionaire wants to see you again? It's not like that, Natalie insisted, though warmth crept up her neck. He wants my professional input on his medical software. I think he's serious about the consulting position. Right, Rachel hummed skeptically. Well, either way. You need an outfit that says I'm brilliant, but also I'm unforgettable. Entering a new world 3 hours later, Wearing Rachel's best navy blazer over her only professional dress, Natalie stepped into a glass elevator that climbed toward the 49th floor of Sterling Tower. Her stomach dropped with each passing floor. She clutched a leather portfolio containing hastily compiled notes about the patient. Care system's numerous flaws. The elevator doors opened to reveal a reception area of stunning minimalism. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Manhattan like a living photograph. A woman with a sleek auburn bob stood from behind a floating glass desk. "Miss Chen, welcome to Sterling Medical Technologies. I'm Patricia. Mr. Sterling is finishing a call. May I offer you something while you wait?" "Water would be great," Natalie replied, suddenly aware of how dry her throat felt. As Patricia disappeared, Natalie absorbed her surroundings. The space was undeniably impressive. All clean lines and strategic lighting highlighting contemporary art. Yet something felt off. Sterile, perhaps. Like a showroom, rather than a place where people actually worked and created. "Do you like it?" Dominic's voice came from behind her. Natalie turned to find him watching her with those penetrating gray eyes. He wore dark jeans and a crisp white shirt today. More casual, but somehow even more striking. Without the suit jacket, she noticed he was leaner than she had initially thought. With the build of someone who found time for early morning runs despite a demanding schedule, it's very ... Natalie searched for a diplomatic word. Impersonal. He supplied with a knowing smile. "My sister says the same thing." "Come on, let's talk somewhere more comfortable," revealing the Flozzie, led her down a corridor to a conference room with panoramic windows and a table crafted from a single massive slab of reclaimed wood. Unlike the sterile reception area, this space felt lived in. Design sketches covered one wall, and several tablets lay scattered across the table. "So," he said, gesturing for her to sit, "I'm guessing you think I'm completely insane for bringing you here based on a chance encounter." "The thought crossed my mind," Natalie admitted, settling into a chair that probably costs more than her monthly rent, along with wondering if this is some elaborate social experiment. Dominic laughed, a sound that seemed to light up his entire face. "No experiment. I've built my career on recognizing opportunities in unexpected places." He leaned forward. "You mentioned our software makes nurses work overtime. That's the exact opposite of what it's designed to do." "Well, it's failing spectacularly," Natalie said, then winced at her bluntness. Rather than taking offense, Dominic looked intrigued. "Show me." For the next 90 minutes, Natalie walked him through the daily frustrations. The excessive clicking required for simple tasks, the unintuitive workflow that ignored how nurses actually moved through their shifts, the redundant safety checks that became so cumbersome that staff found dangerous workarounds. Dominic listened with complete focus, occasionally asking pointed questions or making notes on his tablet. There was something disarming about his concentrated attention, the way he genuinely wanted to understand rather than defend. "This is invaluable," he finally said, setting down his tablet. "Our developers missed these issues because they focused on technical capabilities rather than practical application." "That's the problem with most medical technology," Natalie replied, her professional passion overriding her nervousness. "It's designed by people who have never had to use it while a patient is coding, or a family member is demanding updates." An offer too good to refuse, Dominic studied her for a long moment. "I want to offer you a position, Miss Chen. As a consultant on our medical software team, you would work directly with our developers to make the system more intuitive for nurses." Natalie blinked. "I'm not a software person. I'm a nurse." "Exactly," Dominic said. "That's precisely why we need you. We have plenty of tech experts. What we lack is someone who understands the practical, day-to-day needs of medical staff using our products." "I have a job," Natalie pointed out. "Patients who depend on me. Tight time then. 20 hours a week. Flexible scheduling around your hospital shifts." He named a salary figure that made Natalie nearly choke on the water Patricia had brought. That kind of money would solve her housing crisis instantly. No more choosing between paying student loans and building savings. No more sleepless nights worrying about eviction notices. "That's extremely generous," she managed. "It's fair compensation for expertise we desperately need," Dominic countered. He hesitated, then continued. There's something else. I own several properties throughout the city, including a building in Chelsea with a vacancy. Natalie's eyes narrowed. You're offering me a job in an apartment less than 24 hours after meeting me? That seems impulsive. Perhaps, Dominic acknowledged, but also practical. You need housing immediately. I need someone with your insights equally immediately. The apartment offer stands whether you take the job or not.
Oh.
Why would you offer me housing regardless? Natalie asked, suspicion creeping in. Dominic's expression shifted. Something vulnerable briefly visible before his professional mask returned. Let's just say I understand what it's like to face housing insecurity. Different circumstances, perhaps, but the same fundamental uncertainty. The first warning before Natalie could respond, the door opened and a striking woman in her early 30s entered. Her chestnut hair was pulled back in an elegant chignon, and she wore a designer suit that probably cost more than Natalie's entire wardrobe. She stopped short at the sight of Natalie. Sorry. I didn't realize you were in a meeting, she said, though her sharp green eyes assessed Natalie with clear curiosity. No problem, Dominic replied. Victoria, this is Natalie Chen, a nurse from Manhattan Memorial, providing invaluable feedback on our patient care system. Natalie, this is Victoria Hayes, our Vice President of Product Development. The nurse from the car mix-up, Victoria asked, her perfectly shaped eyebrows rising as she extended her hand to Natalie. Her grip was firm, professional, but there was something calculating in her gaze. Dominic mentioned your encounter. Quite the coincidence. Ms. Chen has identified several critical issues with our hospital implementation, Dominic explained. I've offered her a consulting position. How fortunate, Victoria said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. We're always looking for field expertise. She turned to Dominic. The development team is waiting in the main conference room. The quarterly review. Right. Dominic glanced at his watch. I need to go. Patricia will provide all the details, Natalie. I hope you'll consider both offers seriously. As Natalie gathered her notes, she felt Victoria's eyes on her. I look forward to possibly working with you. Miss Chen, Victoria said, her tone perfectly pleasant despite subtle tension in her posture. Dominic rarely makes impulsive decisions, so you must have made quite an impression. There was a question hidden in that statement, perhaps even a warning. Before Natalie could decipher it, Patricia appeared at the door. Miss Chen, your car is ready whenever you are. Processing the impossible in the elevator descending to the lobby, Natalie's mind spun. Everything was happening so quickly. The job offer was more than tempting. It was life-changing. But something about Victoria Hayes left her unsettled. There were clearly dynamics at Sterling Medical, technologies that she could not begin to understand as an outsider. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. The formal job description from Sterling Medical Technologies had already arrived. Along with apartment viewing options for the following morning, attached was a personal note from Dominic. No pressure, but I believe this could be beneficial for both of us. Sometimes the best opportunities come from the most unlikely encounters. D's, as the town car drove her back toward Brooklyn, Natalie stared out at the city streets. The rain had stopped, leaving the world washed clean and glistening. She thought about her cramped apartment, her mounting debts, her exhausting shifts at the hospital. Then she thought about Dominic's focused attention, the way he had listened to her insights as if they were precious, the vulnerability that had flickered across his face when he mentioned understanding housing insecurity. She pulled out her phone and began typing an email. Mr. Sterling, I accept your offer. Both of them. When do I start? Her finger hovered over the send button for only a moment before she pressed it. The reply came within minutes. Welcome to the team, Miss Chen. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. And please, call me Dominic. Natalie smiled. Watching the city lights blur past her window, unaware that her decision had just set in motion a series of events that would transform not just her career, but her entire understanding of what was possible when two people from completely different worlds found unexpected common ground. 3 weeks later, Natalie stood in her new Chelsea apartment. still marveling at the floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the Manhattan skyline like a masterpiece. At sunset, golden light transformed the modest one-bedroom into something magical. The rent was still significant by normal standards, but compared to typical Manhattan rates, it felt like a gift. Rachel had moved in with her partner across town, while Natalie had stepped into this new chapter of her life that still felt surreal. She worked 3 12-hour shifts at the hospital, then spent 2 full days at Sterling Tower, where her insights were actually being transformed into system improvements. Her phone chimed with a reminder. Development team meeting in 20 minutes. She quickly changed from her hospital scrubs into the business casual wardrobe she had been building for her Sterling days. The dual existence was exhausting but thrilling. The intercom buzzed. "Car for Miss Chen," announced the building concierge. 20 minutes later, Natalie entered the familiar conference room where the software team gathered. Heads turned as she walked in, some expressions friendly, others still skeptical of the nurse who had somehow captured their CEO's professional attention. "Perfect timing," said James Kim, the lead developer who had become her strongest ally. "We were just discussing the medication verification interface. The one that requires 8 clicks to confirm a simple antibiotic," Natalie asked, setting down her tablet and notebook. She still preferred handwritten notes for initial observations, a habit that amused the tech team. 7 clicks now, thanks to your suggestions," James grinned. "But we think we can get it down to 4. The meeting progressed smoothly until Victoria Hayes entered, instantly changing the room's atmosphere. Over the past weeks, Natalie had learned that Victoria was not just the VP of product development. She was also Dominic's ex-girlfriend, a relationship that had ended 2 years ago, but left complicated professional entanglements. Office gossip suggested they had been together for nearly 4 years, and Victoria had expected an engagement ring before their unexpected breakup. "Tensions rising, let me see where we stand with the nurse workflow optimizations," Victoria said. Her tone pleasant, but with an underlying edge Natalie had learned to recognize. As Victoria reviewed the team's progress, she systematically questioned every change based on Natalie's recommendations. Raising technical concerns that sometimes felt manufactured, James defended the modifications, but Victoria's skepticism created palpable tension. "These modifications will require extensive security regression testing," Victoria concluded. Scrolling through the documentation, "We cannot rush implementation simply because they might be convenient." "They're not about convenience," Natalie countered, keeping her voice measured. "They're about patient safety. Every minute a nurse spends fighting with software is a minute taken away from direct patient care." Victoria smiled thinly. "Of course, patient care is paramount, but so is data security and system integrity." The standoff was interrupted when Dominic walked in, instantly reading the room's atmosphere. "How are we progressing?" he asked, taking the empty seat beside Natalie rather than his usual position at the head of the table. She caught a hint of his cologne, something with notes of sandalwood and citrus that she had begun to associate with their increasingly frequent collaboration sessions. "We were discussing implementation timelines," Victoria replied smoothly. "I have some security concerns about the accelerated changes." "Valid concerns," Dominic acknowledged. "But let's remember our priority is creating a system that serves the medical professionals using it. What specific security issues are we facing?" As the technical discussion continued, Natalie observed how differently the team operated with Dominic present. He had a remarkable ability to cut through complexity, to identify core issues while making everyone feel heard. It was fascinating to witness, and she had begun studying his approach, recognizing that navigating corporate dynamics required skills vastly different from hospital hierarchies behind closed doors after the meeting. "Walk with me." They headed toward his office, a route that had become familiar. What had started as formal consultations had evolved into collaborative sessions where they challenged each other's perspectives. Natalie had discovered that beneath Dominic's polished exterior was a mind that craved. intellectual challenge, and authentic feedback. Something apparently rare in his world. Victoria is pushing back harder, Natalie observed once they were in his office with the door closed. Unlike the sterile reception area, Dominic's personal space reflected genuine personality. Bookshelves filled with medical and technical volumes, a vintage chess set on a side table, and framed photographs of architectural landmarks around the world. "She's protective of the system she helped build," Dominic replied diplomatically, though something in his expression suggested deeper complications. He moved to the small kitchenette in the corner. "Coffee? Please." Natalie settled into what she now thought of as her chair near the window. "It's more than professional concern, though, right?" she asked carefully. Dominic's hands paused briefly as he measured coffee grounds. "Victoria and I have history. It complicates things." "Office gossip filled me in," Natalie admitted. "For years together, unexpected breakup. She expected a proposal. You had different plans." Dominic gave her a sharp look. "The rumor mill has been productive. Hospital nurses have nothing on corporate gossips," Natalie said with a slight smile. "But it puts me in an awkward position. I'm not here to create workplace complications. You're here because you're exceptionally skilled at identifying problems in our systems that no one else recognized," Dominic stated firmly. Bringing her a mug of coffee prepared exactly how she preferred it. A detail he had somehow remembered from their previous conversations. "Your presence is not the issue, but it is," Natalie countered, warming her hands around the mug. "To Victoria, I represent something unexpected, disrupting her carefully ordered professional environment. I understand it. I would be suspicious too." The truth revealed, Dominic considered this as he took the seat across from her. "You're very perceptive about people, not just systems. That's nursing. You learn to read what patients are not saying." Natalie took a sip of her coffee. "Speaking of which, I have been meaning to ask. Why medical software? Your background is in financial technology, according to your company profile." A shadow passed over Dominic's face. "That's personal." "Fair enough." Natalie recognized a boundary and started to change the subject. "No. You have shared your expertise openly with me." Dominic set down his mug, his expression growing distant. "My younger sister died from a medication error when I was 21. A nurse was blamed, but the real problem was a poorly designed electronic health record system that made it too easy to select the wrong dosage." Natalie's chest tightened. "I'm so sorry. It was preventable," Dominic continued, his voice steady but carrying old pain. "The nurse was overworked, the interface was confusing, and my sister Claire paid the price. She was only 16. Paused. "When I had enough capital after my first company succeeded, I decided to focus on creating better healthcare technology, to prevent other families from experiencing what mine did." "That explains your commitment," Natalie said softly. "And why you actually listen when I talk about user interfaces and workflow efficiency. It's why your accidental entrance into my car that night felt significant," Dominic admitted. "I had been frustrated with the hospital implementation reports. Everything looked perfect on paper, but adoption rates were concerning. Then suddenly, there you were, exactly the perspective we needed." Their eyes met, and Natalie felt something shift in the atmosphere, something moving beyond professional respect into territory. She was not prepared to navigate. The moment was interrupted by Dominic's phone buzzing insistently. "The board meeting," he sighed, checking the notification. "I need to go, but I wanted to ask if you would consider attending the Healthcare Technology Conference in Boston next month. Your perspective would be valuable during the panel discussions." "Boston?" Natalie asked, surprised. "That's a 4-day conference. It's all expenses covered, naturally, and we would work around your hospital schedule." There was something almost hopeful in his expression. "Think about it." Natalie remained in his office, finishing her coffee and contemplating his invitation. The conference would be a professional opportunity, certainly. But she was not naive about the implications of traveling together, the boundaries between their professional relationship and growing. Personal connection were becoming increasingly blurred. Her contemplation was interrupted when the office door opened and Victoria walked in, stopping short at the sight of Natalie. "I was not expecting to find you here," Victoria said, her surprise quickly masked with professional composure. Alone in Dominic's office, he had to rush to a board meeting, Natalie explained, standing. I was just leaving, were you? Victoria stepped further into the room, her expression unreadable. Natalie, may I speak candidly? Of course, Natalie replied cautiously. You have made quite an impression in a very short time, Victoria said, her tone measured. It's remarkable how quickly you have integrated into the team. I'm just doing the job I was hired for, Natalie said, gathering her notebook. Are you? Victoria asked quietly. Because from where I stand, it seems you are doing considerably more than consulting on software interfaces. Natalie felt warmth rise to her cheeks. I'm not sure what you are implying. I'm not implying anything, Victoria replied. I'm observing. Dominic is drawn to new passions, new projects, new people. It's part of what makes him brilliant, but also what makes him restless. She paused. Did he tell you why we broke up? That's really none of my business, Natalie said carefully. He blamed himself for his sister's death, Victoria continued, as if Natalie had not spoken. He has spent years trying to fix a tragedy he could not have prevented. It consumes him. When we were together, I thought I could help him move past it. But I realized he will always choose his mission over personal happiness. Over any relationship. Why are you telling me this? Natalie asked. Victoria's expression softened slightly. Because I see how he looks at you. The same way he looked at me in the beginning. And I do not want you to make the same mistake I did. Thinking you can be enough to pull him away from his guilt. I appreciate your concern, Natalie said quietly. But I can make my own decisions about my relationships, professional or otherwise. Can you? Victoria challenged gently. You are young, brilliant, compassionate. You deserve someone who can give you their whole heart, not just the pieces left over after grief takes its share. Before Natalie could respond, Victoria turned and left the office, leaving her alone with thoughts that refused to settle the Boston decision that evening. Natalie sat in her apartment, staring at the Boston conference invitation on her laptop screen. Her phone rang. Dominic's name appeared. Hello, she answered. I hope I'm not calling too late, Dominic said. I wanted to follow up about Boston. No pressure, but the registration deadline is tomorrow. Natalie took a breath. Victoria spoke to me today. About you. About your sister. There was a long pause. What did she say? That you will always choose your mission over personal happiness. That you were trying to fix a tragedy you could not have prevented. Another pause. She's not entirely wrong, Dominic admitted quietly. Claire's death changed everything for me. It gave me purpose, but it also created a debt I can never fully repay. Every system we improve, every life we potentially save, it's all an attempt to balance a scale that will never be even. That's not how healing works, Natalie said gently. You cannot earn your way out of grief. Maybe not, Dominic replied. But I can try to ensure her death meant something. That other families do not lose someone they love to preventable errors. Natalie closed her eyes. I'll go to Boston with you. But Dominic, we need to talk about what's happening between us. The professional lines are getting blurred. I know, he said softly. And I have been avoiding that conversation because I am not sure I can offer you what you deserve. Victoria was right about some things. My work will always be part of who I am. I'm not asking you to give up your work, Natalie said. But I need to know if there's room in your life for something more than just mission and purpose. There's room, Dominic said after a moment. The question is whether I have the courage to fill it. 3 weeks later, Boston, the Healthcare Technology Conference, occupied an entire convention center in downtown Boston. Natalie stood backstage, waiting to join Dominic for their panel discussion on user-centered medical software design. She wore a tailored emerald dress that Rachel had insisted she buy, claiming it made her eyes look like they held secrets. Dominic found her in the wings, looking striking in a charcoal suit. Ready? As I'll ever be, she replied. The panel went brilliantly. Natalie spoke about real-world nursing challenges, while Dominic discussed technical solutions. Their chemistry was evident the way they built on each other's points, challenged each other respectfully, found humor in the complexities. Afterward, industry leaders approached them, impressed by their collaborative approach. One hospital CEO pulled Natalie aside. "Whatever he is paying you, it is not enough. You two together are revolutionizing how we think about medical technology implementation." That evening, Dominic suggested they skip the formal dinner and explore the city instead. They walked along the Charles River as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. "I have been thinking about what you said," Dominic began. "About whether there's room in my life for more than work, and—" Natalie asked, her heart racing. "I'm terrified," he admitted. "After Claire died, I built walls. I told myself that relationships were distractions, that I needed to focus entirely on my work. Victoria tried to break through those walls, and when she could not, I convinced myself it was proof that I was meant to be alone." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "But then you stumbled into my car on a rainy night, and everything shifted. You see through my walls like they are made of glass. You challenge me, inspire me, make me want to be more than just a man trying to fix the past." Natalie's breath caught. "Dominic, I'm falling in love with you, Natalie Chen," he said quietly. "And it terrifies me because I do not know if I can be what you need. But I want to try. If you will let me—" Natalie stepped closer, placing her hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat racing beneath her palm. "I'm terrified too. You're a billionaire CEO, and I'm a nurse with student loans. Our worlds are completely different." "Our worlds overlapped the moment you got into my car," Dominic said, covering her hand with his. "Everything since then has just been us figuring out what that means." "So what does it mean?" Natalie asked. "It means I want to try," Dominic said, "to let you in. To build something real beyond our professional collaboration. It means I am willing to take down the walls if you are willing to be patient while I figure out how." Natalie smiled, tears gathering in her eyes. "I can be patient. But Dominic, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you will stop trying to earn redemption for something that was not your fault," she said. "Your sister's death was a tragedy, but it was not your burden to carry alone. Let me help you carry it." Dominic pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. "I promise to try." They stood there as the sun set over the Charles River. Two people from different worlds who had found unexpected connection in a chance encounter. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, complications, moments when their different backgrounds created friction. But as Dominic kissed her softly, Natalie knew that some opportunities were worth every risk. Some connections were worth fighting for. And sometimes, the best love stories began with a simple mistake on a rainy night. When someone got into the wrong car and found exactly the right person. Epilogue 6 months. Later, Natalie stood in the Sterling Medical Technologies auditorium, watching as Dominic unveiled the new patient care system they had developed together, version 2.0, built from the ground up with input from nurses, doctors, and patients. Victoria had eventually left the company, finding a position where she could lead without the complications of past relationships. Before she left, she had pulled Natalie aside. "I was wrong about some things," Victoria had said. "Maybe you are exactly what he needs. Someone who sees him as a person, not just a mission." As Dominic finished his presentation and turned to acknowledge Natalie in the audience, she saw not just the brilliant CEO, but the man who had learned to open his heart again. The man who still worked tirelessly to improve healthcare technology, but who also made time for sunset walks, lazy Sunday mornings, and quiet conversations about everything and nothing. Their love story had started with a mistaken ride on a rainy night. It had grown through professional collaboration, honest conversations, and the courage to be vulnerable. And as Natalie caught Dominic's eye across the crowded auditorium, she knew this was just the beginning. Sometimes the best journeys started with getting into the wrong car and finding exactly the right destination.